We'll start things off with a big mahalo to today's sponsors. Those are the Safeway Foundation and COSCO Air Conditioning and Refrigeration. Today we're doing our deadlift challenge. Woo! So if we go on, we'll start with our demo like we usually do. And I'll actually talk over this demo because it doesn't have sound. So this exercise requires a little bit of space, so be sure you have room. It's a body weight exercise like most of ours. So you're going to want to stand up straight and tall if you can, and then lower yourself down and hinge or bend at your hip and not at your knees. And you're going to want to get your hands down to about the same height as halfway up your calf, halfway up your shin. If you can, try doing it with one leg, just like I've shown here, and then alternate each round. And if you need a little help with the balance, you can lean on something, just like I've demonstrated here, or you can just keep both feet on the ground. All right, now we'll jump into our warm-up and let's get some blood pumping.
Okay, so now let's get warmed up for our fitness challenge. First thing are our washing machines. Put your arms out in front of your body and we're gonna twist side to side 10 times. And we're gonna bring our shoulders perpendicular to our hips. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Good job. All right, next, windmills. We'll stretch out our shoulder joint, and what we're gonna do is be bringing our arms all the way up and back and being sure that our elbows reach our ears. So 2, 3, 4, 5, and we're gonna wanna do this 10 times. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Good job. Now the other arm. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Awesome. Next, we're going to do our lower body. So we're going to do flamingos, and we're going to want to bring our knees up and hold them one at a time while balancing on the other leg. This will stretch out kind of the back part of our butts. So bring your knee up and balance. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Awesome job. Now we're going to do the other side. Bring your knee up and then balance. And it might be hard, but try to keep it if you can. And if you can't, you're going to want to find a wall or something that you can lean on to help prop yourself up with one of your arms, all right? So bring your knee up and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Awesome job. Next, we're going to do kind of the same thing, but by bringing our feet back and balancing. So grab your ankle and then balance and hold. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you should really feel this through the front of your leg. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Awesome job. Now let's switch and do the other side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Good. All right. Now we're kind of all limbered up, and let's get into our fitness challenge.
Okay, so you'll probably notice that I'm not in the usual position I am when we start these things. That's because I wanted to explain this exercise one more time to all of you. So with this deadlift, it's called specifically a Romanian deadlift, and you don't actually have to use weight. Like I said, you're going to want to stand with both feet firm underneath your body, and you can align them out as far as your shoulders or bring them in a bit. You're going to want to keep your legs fairly straight and then bend down and bend forward, right? And be sure that you are pushing your butt out. And then you're going to want to come back up. And as you bend down, you want to be sure that the entire movement is coming through your hips, right? So you want to hinge at your hips just like a door, and go down and up and down and back up, right? And if you want to make it a little bit harder for yourself, like I said, you can prop up on one foot with your toes still touching the ground right next to your foot and go down and back up and down and back up. Awesome. Okay, so now, as we usually do, I will give each of you I will give all of you a 5-second warning for starting and then a 5-second warning for when we finish. So get ready, be sure you have enough space, be sure you have water ready if you need it, and we're going to do this for 30 full seconds. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Awesome. Good job, everybody. And be sure you're keeping your back straight. I know I didn't necessarily give the absolute best example for that one, but you want to be sure you're engaging your core the whole time and you are keeping your back straight as a board as you go down and then come back up. All right. 5-second warning now. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Or stop, I should say. Everybody did good, really good job on that one. Be sure, again, just like I said, keep your back straight as you bend down and then come all the way back up. You want to be sure you lock your shoulder blades back if you can, so that essentially you're just kind of bowing, and this whole movement can be considered like a really exaggerated bow. Okay, everybody ready? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Awesome. Great, great job. That's great form. Ooh, I'm seeing, oh, good job. Hey, be sure you're not bending your knees too much. You want to hinge at the hips. Really feel it through your hamstrings and your glutes, right? Good job, everybody. Okay. Awesome job. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Stop. Good job. Way to go. I know that was a new exercise for a lot of y'all. I know it was a new movement. I actually hope that y'all will get to see that exercise and movement a little bit more in maybe some of your practices for the Holiday Fitness Classic. And hopefully this little fitness challenge is helping to prep y'all for that, get you better at some of your other movements that you're doing in the challenge, in the fitness classic. Okay, so now we are going to move on to our health and wellness talk. Woo! And today we are actually going to play a little game toward the end of our talk. Oh, oops. I'm sorry. Totally, we only did 2 rounds. 5-second start for the last round. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. I'm sorry. All right, good job. Keep going. Even through my little mistakes, let's keep going. Good job, everybody. Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Stop. Okay, now we're done. My bad, y'all. I totally miscounted there. Apparently, Walker has trouble counting to 3 sometimes. Who knew? Please, as always, check the SOHI website or the Stay Fit Facebook group and make sure you get your challenge star. We all want as many entries in the raffle as we can possibly get, right? And now here is our demo for next week. We're doing the plank, which is one of our holiday fitness classic exercises.
All right, guys, our next event will be the forearm plank. We've got Diana is going to demo the forearm plank for us. So for the forearm plank, you're going to assume what's called a low or forearm plank, which includes both of the forearms and the hands or fists are in contact with the floor. You have an option of having the side of your forearms against the floor with fists, or you can actually turn your forearms so that they're facing down and the palm of your hand is touching the ground along with your fingers. Your feet have your balls of your feet or toes touching the ground. And for this event, no other body part can come into contact with the ground. Your elbows should be directly underneath your shoulders and your body should be straight. You want to engage your core, so contract your stomach muscles. You want to contract your glute muscles, and you want to relax your head and your neck in this. And basically try to keep a straight line all the way from your shoulders all the way to your heels. Now, the things you will basically get counted against, or when the timer will stop, is if your body starts to sag and your knees come in contact with the ground or your thighs come in contact with the ground, we'll immediately stop the timer. And then Diana, if you can go back to plank position. The other thing too is if you start to do what we call a jackknife, so really start to pop your butt in the air, we'll give a warning and ask the athletes to go back to straight position. And if they're unable to, then we'll also stop the counter. So again, that's really good position for Diana. See a full straight body there. So for this one, we want to remind you guys of camera angles. So for this, you'll need a full wide view because we do need to capture from the toes all the way to the hands. For this one, we recommend that the camera is in a lower position, so either on the floor or a low chair, so that we can, again, capture the athlete from that angle and we can basically see if any of the body is coming into contact with the floor. Additionally, we recommend that the athletes wear a shirt that's tucked in, relatively tight-fitting clothes, so that we can see if any body part is coming into contact with the floor as well. All right, so we're gonna take one more good look at this. So again, Diana, go to plank position. Again, the only thing in contact with the floor, again, are from the forearms, so from the elbows all the way up to the fingers. Again, can be in a fist or fingers out. The body's in a straight line, elbows underneath the shoulders, and we've got only the feet or balls of the feet touching the floor. And that's great, perfect straight line position. And that is the forearm plank.
And also, I want to remind all of you that you can do the modified version, which drops your knees to the ground, right? If y'all remember that, we have learned how to do it in some of our practices if we were prepping for the Alkake Fitness Classic. Okay, let's move on. We will see all of you as always. Well, actually, this is a bit new. We'll see you tomorrow for our workout with Ryan Ho. And there will be a slightly different time. That's tomorrow morning, Wednesday, October 7th at 9:30 a.m. The meeting ID is 815-3406-5939. So remember, that's a slightly different time. Okay. Now let's start our health and wellness talk. And this will be a fun one because I've built in a little game for us to play. Today's talk is over nutrition and portioning. So a lot of you that have been playing along with the bingo probably noticed that there's at least one square specifically about this. And so couldn't actually cross that square off until we got to today. We'll get more to that later. But let's start with what is usually in your meals. Who wants to type into the chat box, please? Because I love participation with all of this. Some foods or some items that you put into your meals, or what do you think about when you're building your meals? Good. All right. So vitamins. Kylie says rice and pork. Cool. We'll go over what those are. If you know what types of food rice and pork are, that's great. Ho'opio. I love what you said there about fruits and vegetables. Those are really, really important for us to eat. Awesome. I see y'all are all going down some really, really healthy routes. All right. If we go to the next slide, we'll actually see that there are three main components in a meal, right? And this is for a healthy meal. So we can, from time to time, have an unhealthy meal, but we want to try to avoid that, right? So there are three main components to a healthy meal. And the first one that we're going to talk about, and you've all probably heard this word, are proteins. Woo! So all healthy meals should have proteins and should have a protein portion to the meal. And proteins are the things that make up our muscles, right? They're the things that our body uses to build muscles and to then be able to move everything in the environment and in the world around us. We need them to help, we need proteins to help build up our bodies and to stay strong. Also, because proteins are so important for our bodies, we can't actually make all of them ourselves. So we have to get them from the food we eat. And because they're so important, and because we have to get them from the food we eat, protein is also what helps to make us feel most full. And that's really important when it comes to things like overeating, right? And it's also important to remember that almost all foods have at least some protein. But right now we're focusing on good sources of protein. And some good sources of protein include meat, beans, right? So legumes, beans, that could be pinto beans or chickpeas or black beans, and of course fish. Oops. So what are some examples of good protein sources that y'all eat every day? Chicken, fish, tofu. I'm glad someone said tofu. Yes, tofu is a good source of protein. And does anybody know what tofu is made out of? Soy, yes. And soys are what that we talked about in the last page, or on the last page. What are soybeans? Did I just give away the answer? Yes, they're proteins and they're beans, right? So beans, as we said, are a good source of protein. Yep, steak. Hot dogs can be, but hot dogs also have a lot of other stuff and aren't necessarily the healthiest decision that we can make, right? So we, just as Nicole has said, we want to stick to lean meats if we can. Ooh, Rachel, that is a very good suggestion. Yes, hummus is a good source of protein. Kiana, apple is something else. We'll get to that in a second. Bananas or something else. We'll get to that in a second. And we'll talk about pizza later too. All right, next slide. The second main component of a meal, and a lot of you have touched on this and talked about it, vegetables and fiber. Vegetables and fiber. Vegetables are usually high in fiber and vitamins and minerals. And we talked about those being a very, very important part of any meal, and about them and about their importance for us staying healthy, right? Fiber helps to keep our digestive system healthy. And that's just how our body processes stuff, right? And if we can't process food correctly, If we don't have a healthy digestive system, then we're not actually getting all the nutrients from the foods we eat, which is a very, very bad thing. Vegetables also give us the nutrients to keep our immune system and mind functioning at peak performance. Vegetables do so much stuff for our bodies when we eat them. We really, really should be trying to maximize or have as many vegetables as we possibly can. So when you go to the store, if you go to the grocery store, a fun way to think about that is how much space vegetables take up. They get their whole giant own section, right? And it's usually laid out with a lot of space, and it's fun to shop over there. So try to spend a little bit of extra time there next time you're at the grocery store. So what do you think are some good vegetable sources? Carrots? Yep. Bananas are not actually vegetables. Those are fruit. Broccoli, yep, that's a good one. Potatoes are vegetables, but we're going to talk about them in a second because I like to actually put potatoes in another category. Ooh, and we'll talk about corn too. Peas are not actually a vegetable either. Peas are a bean, and peas are actually really high in protein. I'm not saying don't eat peas. I eat them all the time. They're my favorite snack. But you also want to factor in that they have a lot of protein. So you can actually make a portion of your meal completely out of peas or other beans and consider that a protein source and still have other vegetables, right? Spinach, yes, great vegetable. Okay, and so is kale. All right, let's go to the next slide. And the third category we're talking about today for building up a healthy meal are your starches and your grains, right? So a grain, we'll start there. A grain is what? Can anybody throw it into the chat box what a grain is? Yes, these are some good examples of grains, but what is a grain? Like, what does the word grain mean? Ooh, Nicole says it's something that turns into sugar. Maybe. A grain is actually a seed, right? So when you're thinking about grains, and if you want to figure out whether something is a grain or not, think about if a plant can grow from it, right? And a starch is something that basically just has a lot of energy. And so when we eat the starches, we can get a lot of energy from them. So grains are a type of seeds that are usually ground up and turned into different types of flour. And flour is one of the primary sources or main sources of starch in our modern diets because a lot of us eat bread, right? Grains are high in starch, as I said, and those are a type of carbohydrate. How many of you have ever looked at the back of a nutrition label and seen the carbohydrates listed? Yep, mashed potatoes are a good source of, good. So it's nice to see that y'all are familiar with that. And carbohydrates are a specific type of nutrient, just like proteins. And they, in our modern diets, are primarily starches and sugars. We can talk about sugars at another time, but today we're focusing on starches. And starch is really, really, really high in energy, and it helps to keep us going and energetic. It's our second largest source of energy in most of our diets, actually. And that's perfectly good, and that's perfectly okay. But we don't want to have too much, just like we don't want to have too much of anything, right? We will now go on to our next slide, which I'll ask Al some more questions. What do you usually eat with a lot of grain or starch? Yes, Nicole, eat in moderation. Always, always, always eat in moderation. Yes, bread, exactly. Bread has a lot of starch. Rice has a lot of starch. Cookies have a lot of starch. Anything that is like a baked good or a pastry will have a lot of starch. It'll not only have starch, it'll also have that sugar. So these aren't necessarily the healthiest decisions to be making, right? Gilbert saying brown rice and wheat bread. Yes, those are better decisions to make, or healthier decisions. I don't want to say better, but they're definitely the healthier choice when choosing your types of bread that you eat or the types of rice that you eat. And also remember, it's okay to not have bread at every meal or to not have rice at every meal. You still want to have a starch of some kind, but you can mix that in. And we'll talk about that in just a second. Ooh, hot cereal. Yep. So oatmeal, popcorn. Yep. Because popcorn is corn, and corn is what? Well, I guess we'll actually talk about that in a second. If we go to the next slide, we will start our little game, I think. Yep. Oh, wait, one more slide. How much of each of these nutrients do y'all think you should eat? Anyone think? Anyone know? It seems like a hard question, but the answer, yep, the answer is actually a lot easier than you may think. When you're portioning out a plate, all you have to do is try to keep it into thirds. So you want 1/3 of your plate, 1/3 of your meal to be vegetables or fruit. So your fiber, your high fiber stuff, your things with a lot of nutrients, vitamins, and minerals. You want 1/3 to be your proteins, because we already talked about how your body needs that to build up your muscles. Your body needs that to help stay strong and have that strong immune system. And you want 1/3 to be starch and grain, right? For all your energy needs. Woo! Get your energy up. Okay. Now, let's try to identify what categories some of these foods are. And this is today's little game. So for each type of food I throw up, I want you to, or I put on the computer, I want you to tell me whether it's a protein, a vegetable, or a grain. Remember, some foods can be more than one thing, right? Like pizza. Pizza can actually be all three if you make it correctly. And even then, you want to have a moderate serving, and you want to be sure that you are portioning it correctly. Okay. So what is this? I think we can all identify steak. And is it a protein, a vegetable, or a starchy grain? Good, good. Looks like everybody's getting this one right. It is a protein. And remember, these are about learning. It's a fun game to play, but this is mostly about learning. So yes, steak is a protein. What about this? Can all of us identify this? Do we know what this is? It is a vegetable. It is not avocado. These are actually Brussels sprouts, another one of my favorite foods. And Brussels sprouts are very, very closely related to a vegetable all of us should be eating, but might not necessarily like to eat, called broccoli. And as you've said, Brussels sprouts are themselves a vegetable as well. Awesome. Next one. What about this? We talked a lot about it. Good job, everybody. Grain/starch. It is made out of ground up grains, and it is mostly starch. Good. Remember, we want to eat our starches and our grains in moderation. We don't want to have a massive amount of them, right? Keep it to just 1/3. So you can make an entire meal out of just one sandwich. You have your starches, and then on the inside, you can have your vegetables and your proteins. Next one. What about this one? And this is probably one of the easiest Good, everybody. Y'all are getting it. It's a grain or a starch. And this is white rice, and it is probably one of the easiest starches to overeat, and it's served a lot, right? So if we go get a mixed plate, they're going to give us a lot of rice, when really we don't actually need all of the rice that's being given to us, and we can save some for later. Okay, let's go to the next one. Oh, okay. What is this? And this may seem like a little bit of a trick question, but we did talk about it. I see Nicole saying it contains proteins and vegetables. I'm seeing something else in there. We'll call this a chili. Might it actually have all three? I'm seeing some grains in there, specifically a yellow one. Yeah, it has all three. So if we go to the next slide, we'll go over a really tough one, and I kind of touched on it. What is this? Yes, and that is 100% corn. Is it a vegetable, a protein, or a grain? And remember, y'all, this is actually a really difficult question. Most people don't know what type of food this is. They actually think that it is something it's not. And I see a lot of people throwing that answer up, and that it's saying that it's a vegetable. But remember what we said? What are grains? Grains are seeds. Grains are things that grow into plants. So if you plant a kernel of corn, is that going to grow into a plant? Of course it's going to grow into a plant. That's how you grow corn, right? So corn is actually a grain. And if you look really, really closely at it, you can see that it kind of looks like wheat a little bit. So when you're eating corn, remember to factor it in as a grain and a starch and not as a vegetable, right? Awesome. Good job, everybody. Y'all are getting it. Good, good, good. Okay. Now, if we go to the next slide, I wanted to talk briefly about this, and we will in a moment. To submit your bingo cards, please contact me, email me at ha@sohawaii.org, or post it to me social media. And when you post to social media, could you actually also try to email it to me? That would help me a lot, because sometimes I might miss posts. So far, I've only seen one, but we're actually going to go over that yet, because while you should have a lot of tiles crossed off, because we're all playing along, right? We shouldn't have all of them crossed off, because if you look at your bingo card, even just today, we went over something that was a square on a bingo card. And if you said your bingo card was done before we went over today's portioning, how could you correctly portion out your meals, right? We hadn't learned how to do that yet. So when you're crossing off your squares on your bingo card, be sure you're posting about it. Be sure you're posting yourself doing it if it asks to do it. And if it doesn't ask to do it anyway. I want to see all of you participating in the group. I watch that. I monitor that. It helps keep me upbeat. It helps keep me going. And also it helps me be sure that you're all actually crossing off the squares correctly, right? And hopefully after this week and after next week, I can start sending out some of our great incentives. And I have been following along, again, like I said, and a lot of you are getting really, really far on your bingo cards. So we want that tote bag, we want that water bottle, and we want this shirt, right? Yeah, awesome. Okay, so join us next week for an amazing talk with our clinical director, Val Rose. If any of you have been to the Healthy Athlete events at the state games, you may remember Val. She's super nice. She's one of my absolute favorite people to work with. and she is taking some time aside to record a very special talk just for all of you. Yeah, and she'll be the close, and then after Val's presentation, we'll start a new bingo card. Awesome. Okay, so if you have any health questions, bingo questions, virtual and stay fit questions, please email me. My email is ha@sohawaii.org. I am always available for all of you. I love to hear from you, and we'll always have time for y'all. Okay, thank you all very much, and please enjoy your talk story time, and message me privately, please, if you have any further questions. Oh, yes, and then also just to go over this one more time quickly, this is obviously the bingo card. So if you look down at the G, column, you'll see specifically that, as we've highlighted here, a portion out, a meal before serving square, right? And that is my example of a square that we couldn't cross off until we had already learned about it and gone over it. And remember, there are other squares that require you to post in the group, like post a workout selfie, and then participate in a weekly dance party. You don't have to post a selfie, but I would love for you to post a selfie from that. Post a selfie from your School of Strength in SOHI Stays Fit workout. I haven't seen very many of those at all. So if you want the full blackout reward, you gotta post to the group, right? Okay, if y'all have any further questions, please, please, please message me. I'll be on here for a little bit longer. And then if I miss you, if I miss your question, email me, please. Mahalo, y'all. Y'all have an amazing day. And thank you for coming.